Okay, so my face is back again. Yesterday, or not yesterday, this morning, I took down my review of Grand Soul Story because I learned that Dall-E, which is an AI program that generates images, was used in the game. And I felt it was really necessary to include that uh, into the review, so I kind of wanted to redo it. And how I'm going to do it is we're going to have a big section here at the beginning talking about changes in the videos, in the video, and then I have an ending section with my updated, revised overall thoughts for the game. So, this section right now, I'm going to talk about my personal thoughts on AI, specifically generating quote unquote art. I'm not going to talk all about AI because I am not educated enough at all to discuss the whole thing. So I'm gonna specifically focus on this, and that's AI generating images to be used in like commercial use. And this isn't meant to be a lecture. Like I said, I'm not educated enough, nor am I qualified to discuss all the inner workings of AI and all that stuff. But I do have an opinion, and it stems from me considering myself an artist, whether it be in graphic design or drawing. Like I've drawn since I was a teenager, and I first watched Dragon Ball Z. That's what's gotten me into it. I've drawn my whole life, and as far as AI generation with images, I'm strongly against it. Uh, I think a program that uses other people's artwork to generate itself isn't the same as somebody who takes the time to actually create and do the art. Um, like I feel art is more than the image you're looking at. Like an AI generated image can be cool. It can look cool, but there's more to it than what it looks like. There's more to a piece of music than just the song itself. So, yeah, I'm definitely against it. I don't think it's right for somebody to profit off of it. It definitely makes more sense for somebody to actually put the work into it. That's my personal opinion on the AI image generation. I'm really against it. So the changes in the video. Let's start off. The game was originally called Grand Soul Saga. The dev had to change the name to Grand Soul Story to avoid a copyright infringement. So throughout the video, I call it Saga, but just know the name was changed. Also, I added annotations to wherever an AI generated image was used. If there's something I missed or got wrong, it's whatever, because I'm not doing this video again. And then, like I said before, I'll close the end of the video with my revised final thoughts with everything. I also cut out a section where I praised that I really like the character portraits and like some of the art used in it. I cut that out because I honestly don't feel like it deserves any praise since it was generated by a computer. I do want to close this first part here by saying, like, I take full responsibility for not doing my due diligence before. I never even thought to ask if AI was involved. I told the dev in an email that, through all this stuff that happened this morning, that if I knew ahead of time that AI was used in it, I wouldn't have reviewed the game. I would have just politely said no thanks. So that's my fault. I'm definitely going to try to do better in the future. It's a personal lesson learned for me. And I also want to apologize that this camera stuff sucks. I just used my phone, so it's probably shaky and probably doesn't sound great, but I felt like this is the best way I can convey what I'm talking about. So what we'll roll next will be the video, and then afterwards I'll see you again for my final thoughts.
We live in an age where so many games are getting released every day. Big time developers are cranking their creations out like a machine. It seems like several times a month we're just getting one big release after the other. It's easy to get swept away in the excitement, but big developers aren't the only ones dropping some good games. I've always kept my eye on indie games. I never dismiss a game because it's not quote unquote AAA, and tend to find more innovation and risk-taking in the indie scene. Games like Chained Echoes, Fading Afternoon, Crystal Project, and Slay the Spire have been a few of my favorite games I've played in the last 3 to 4 years. In my opinion, there are just as many good games in the indie market that there are in the AAA market. So when Moonsoul Games reached out to me asking to review their game, Grand Soul Saga, I was really excited to dive into a new indie experience. Some things I want to point out before I begin: I started playing this game when it was in early access, and throughout my playthrough there were several updates and balance changes to the game, as there were bugs that needed to be fixed. My review will focus on my experience as I experience them, so if something gets patched after the fact, well, that's just the nature of games nowadays. Without further ado, let's see what Moonsoul Games has brewed up in their indie RPG debut. After narrowly escaping a violent insurrection in your country, you are thrust into the underworld of nearby DuPont, a crumbling city-state ruled by technocrats, competing drug cartels, and a mysterious cybernetic superpower called the Eye of God. Joined by a scrappy crew of smugglers, alchemists, and wanderers, you venture westward to Yurdan, a distant port city where your surviving family awaits you. Hopefully. Alright, so your main character is driven from their home, so you gotta make it across this fucked up country. To achieve this, a dude named Santos tells you gotta earn a shitload of cash. The main story progression is broken up into 3 acts, with each act requiring a deposit of money to advance, which leads to Grand Soul Saga's game loop. Throughout DuPont, there are an abundance of side quests to acquire to earn yourself the necessary amount of money to progress. The game itself does have an overall narrative, but the bulk of the game is completing these side quests. By completing them, you learn about the world around you, build relationships with recruited party members, and get to make choices that may or may not impact your playthrough. In essence, I kind of feel like this is Side Quest the game, which is pretty awesome to me. If you haven't noticed, this game is made in RPG Maker, and I'm sure a lot of us have messed around with this program at some point in our lives. I know I did way back in the day, mainly in RPG Maker 2000. I bring this up because I always imagine that if I were to make my own game, I'd want it to be mainly full of side quests, just like Grand Soul Saga. So you can imagine how hyped I was playing an RPG Maker game that was kind of using the idea I've had like my entire life. The myriad selection of side quests makes the game pretty non-linear with its progression and storytelling. And I've always liked a choose your own adventure style progression in RPGs. I enjoy it more than your standard linear RPG of just going from point A to point B and so on. In this game, I get to decide if I want to break into Duke de Marquez's mansion. I get to decide if I want to return Andy's gambling addicted grandma to him. I get to decide if I want to be an assassin for hire for a crime syndicate, or turn my blade on Big Boss, or just ignore them completely. And hey, maybe there's consequences for my actions or inactions. This is awesome because it was my choice and I have to live with it. It's a freedom that I wish was in way more video games. Now, if you're really looking to experience the full story of this game, then I highly suggest you do as many side quests as possible, especially the ones you unlock with the characters you recruit throughout the game. As I said before, there is an overall narrative in the game, and it's enriched by doing the characters' side quests. Or, don't do any of it. It's your choice. Without spoiling anything, I do want to offer my critique on the game's story, which I didn't find to be horrible, but it just didn't interest me that much, and that's because I found the storytelling to be unbalanced and lose focus a lot of the time. For example, some characters seem to get more attention and care to their development versus others, so I gravitated towards the characters that had more focus and ignored the others. The first act of the game provides mystery and intrigue to the Eye of God, and some weird things happening to your character. But it pretty much dissolves in the second and third acts, as the mystery angle seems to pretty much vanish as soon as you leave Act 1. I also found it difficult to understand what's going on in the world of the game until I met this NPC that legit spells it all out for you, which was good for me at the time, but then in retrospect, I would have rather had the game do a better job explaining everything as I did the side quests and interacted with my party versus some random dude giving me a history lesson. But hey, maybe I'm dumb, I don't fucking know. I also found that a bulk of the 17 hours it took me to beat the game came in the first act. It obviously got the most attention and left the other acts feel lacking in comparison. I do really like the overall futuristic setting of the game. It legit gave me Shadowrun vibes from the Super Nintendo, with its rundown areas, rampant crime, and pseudo-cyberpunk feel. Honestly, it's what kept me going throughout this whole game. As you all know, I'm just a sucker for sci-fi. Okay, I want to go into the combat of the game, and I'm not gonna lie. I've been kind of burying the combat to be like in the middle of this video. Grand Soul Saga is a turn-based RPG using the classic ATB system. You have the actions to attack, use skills, items, etc. Seems pretty simple on paper, right? But the combat is actually pretty fucking tough. Skills cost a lot of points, enemies deal massive damage, lots of items will heal HP but take away skill points, and you can get addicted to drugs providing nerfs, and you basically have to heal up after every fight. Your characters can die in just a couple hits. I saw the game over screen a lot in Act 1. Oh, and you can't run from combat either. Once you engage, you're either winning or dying. I knew playing this game at the very beginning that the combat difficulty is going to turn a lot of players off. Now, personally, I loved the challenge. It reminded me of the old school trial and error that a lot of the early NES games had. So it didn't turn me away because I've been used to this stuff since I was a kid. But I think it's important that players going into this game know that it's not a picnic. You're probably going to die a lot. Now, there have been updates to try and balance it, but to be objective, it's still tough. So write this shit down. Game is hard. Ignoring the difficulty, the combat system has a few mechanics, like the ability to use stocks to increase damage, much like Octopath Traveler. Enemies also have weaknesses that can be exposed and break them, causing them to stun, once again, just like Octopath Traveler. But I found myself almost never focusing on weaknesses, and more on getting the enemies inflicted with status ailments. And honestly, trying to break an enemy takes way too much time to achieve. I found it easier to just blind the whole enemy group and deal the highest damage possible. And it's because of this I feel I went against the intended design for combat, which kind of shows how unbalanced it is. There's also this mini game whenever you use a standard attack. A little range shows up and you want to make sure you hit the action button when it's in the red. I found this completely unnecessary. It never changes, it's always the same speed, and the ranges are always in the same spot. I found it more boring and annoying than interesting. While exploring the world, you'll find lots of items hidden in the environment, much like in Final Fantasy IX, which is awesome because who doesn't like free shit? You'll also notice that you do not have the ability to sell anything in this game. It's not even an option. This provides a focus on scavenging and money management, giving the game an extra layer. You know all those attack items you get in most traditional RPGs that you just ignore or sell? Well, they're actually important in this game. Buying items is just as important as buying better equipment. And not just healing items, attack items too. You have to find ways to get cash and spend it wisely. I like the idea, because it's about damn time these typical throwaway items have actual importance. Trust me, they're gonna help you a lot in combat. Okay, this is gonna be kinda weird, but a criticism I have to bring up is the jump mechanic in the game. You can hop over objects and gaps, pretty standard jump mechanic. The issue isn't the mechanic itself, but the stupid ass sound effect it makes. It's too damn happy. Let me paint a scene for you. You find a drug addict that needs a fix, so you hook them up with some drugs. You go to the next screen and find out that they OD'd and died. This is a grim scene, not a laughing matter. Until you hop away like you're in a fucking Disney cartoon. The ink blood you spared earlier lies cold on the sewer floor, overdosed. This shit cracked me up, and it distracted me so much that I started jumping around right after any serious scene. It def took me out of the experience with my own laughter. There has to be a better sound effect to use. The music is pretty decent overall as well, definitely being one of the strongest features of the game.
Hello again. So basically, for my final thoughts, I don't think the game's like bad at all. I don't think it's great. There's definitely some fun stuff in there that I liked. I enjoyed the challenge. There's definitely going to be a lot of stuff I think like a lot of gamers won't like. Obviously, you have to play it to decide for yourself. But my revised final thoughts, knowing that AI was used for generating images, and my personal views of how I'm strongly against that stuff, it has kind of ruined this entire experience for me because I've never been asked to like review a game, have a copy provided, and everything. It is a little tainted for it, but I'm not like a sad sack about it. I just kind of wish I just fucking asked. But knowing this and how I feel, I it's impossible for me to recommend this game just because that's how strongly I feel opposed to it. And that's just how I feel. There's really no more further explanation I need to give to it. I did really like the music though. I think the music's great. The dev did compose it, so I think he should deserve some credit for that. I also, when I emailed him, I told him I was going to make changes to the video. I said I strongly suggest that on your Steam page you update it and include that you use Dall-E to generate images. And he emailed me back and he said he did update on that. I think the dev's a cool guy. We obviously disagree on this, but I hope he keeps making games. I mean, if they use AI image generation, I won't play them, but I hope he keeps making games. And for his opinions on stuff, I'll leave it to him to explain it to you. I'm not gonna try to do that. So, but thanks for watching the video. I'm actually gonna get back to work on next week's video, but it's definitely been an interesting ride, and I hope you guys have a great day.